Hello, everyone. Welcome. I have no introduction today. You know why? Because of the many things that are going wrong. This is one of them. I couldn't make anything work. So no introduction except to say, hi, I'm Pat Brown. And I'm here today to talk about Steven Avery and making a murderer. So before I do that, I'm going to ask those folks, because I was having not only problems with my camera, but problems with my mic. So please do tell me if you can hear me before I start wasting your time. So let me see. I see Annie is here. I see Sharon is here. Hi, Sharon. I see Christine is here. Can you hear me clearly? Please do tell me before I get started. And I'm going to ask right here. I'm going to type this in. Are you hearing me? Because nobody's commenting. So I'm concerned that the mic is malfunctioning. So do let me know. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. Here we go. Yikes, no sound yet. Is anybody here? Oh, you do hear me. Oh, thank God. Okay. One of the reasons I'm having problems is I changed rooms. So this is a new setup. I was in my dining room before, which is my living room, dining room, and I had the huge screen up and everything on the tables, and it was a big fat mess. So I've moved to a new setup, and I'm struggling with everything because I moved, and therefore, as things always happen when you move something around and you think it's fine and then you find out it's not. So before I get started again, let me do the business I always forget. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe so you find out what's coming up in the future, and so you can support the channel with subscriptions, and also hit that little bell that'll let you know. Theoretically, somebody said they didn't get their notification about my shows, but hit the bell anyway. Just hopefully they will send those notifications out to you. So, okay, let's get to making a murderer. Wow. Last week I did a show on West Memphis 3, and I talked about how this was the start when the movie Paradise Lost came out. Paradise Lost was the first real kind of like defense movie, what I call a defense movie, where the whole point of it is to prove whoever has been convicted is not guilty, and their terrible injustice has happened. And it's usually an extraordinarily slanted version put on by whoever thinks they're innocent. And so I talked about that one last week, and that one did very well. But when they came out with Making a Murderer, it was 2015. Holy God. I mean, this thing, they had the first season, I think, was 10 shows. And then there was a second season. Unbelievable. And as I pointed out with YouTube videos, even, one of my big problems is I'll do one video on this story and that'll be the end of it. But if I wanted to really make money, the way to do it would be to say, okay, this is the first of the series, and then I'd have to rope you in, and then you'd come to see number 2 and number 3 and number 4 and number 5. Interestingly enough, my opinion, if you're presenting just the solid evidence, you could probably do it in 1 hour. But if you're going to add in everything, all the dramatic music and all the side interviews and everybody's opinion here and there, you can stretch that sucker out for a really long show or an entire series. And then, of course, you can come back with part 2 with more ideas on the case, more, the next season of it. And as long as you've got a huge, massive audience, which they did get from Making a Murder, probably the most successful, what I call defense film out there, just absolutely huge. I'm glad you're all here. Lucas. What's this? Oh, you got armchair says I got my notification. Oh, goody, because you didn't get the last one, right? So yeah, I'm glad you got it. So awesome. And welcome to everybody else, Leah, Ewelina, Roberta, everybody, and Christine. Yeah, nice group here today. Okay, so now I don't know, is anybody here? I'm curious. Did everybody see Making a Murder, or are there actually people here who actually don't know about Making a Murderer? I'm just curious whether you're familiar with the case or not. I'm going to, of course, give you the basic details on the case so that you know what happened. And let me check out my great source, Wikipedia, because that's the easiest way to do it. All right. So basically what we have here is the movie itself, the show, the series, Making a Murderer. What happened was back in, what was it, 2005, Steven Avery and his nephew, Brendan Dassey, were arrested for the murder of Teresa Halbach. Hopefully I'm not butchering her name, Teresa Halbach. And she was a beautiful young woman who came out to Steven Avery's property where they had these all these cars and things for sale, kind of junkyard sort of. And after she came out, she disappeared and wasn't seen again. And the police zeroed in on him because, well, after all, she was going to his home. So they suspected him. And then he was arrested along with his nephew, who confessed to the crime and implicated his uncle and himself. And then they were convicted in 2007. And therefore, they were there for many years before a couple of people who were kind of into film stuff thought this would be a great story to do because, they wanted a great story. And so they got the idea together and eventually sold it to the networks. And then they brought on board, let me find the lady they brought on board. This would be, here she is. Where is she? There she is. And this is the defense attorney that they brought on board. Her name is, why don't I forget her name all of a sudden? Okay, Kathleen Zellner. Sorry, Kathleen Zellner. She is kind of like tries to get people out of jail who have been convicted, who supposedly she feels are innocent, and she's brought in on these cases to talk to try to get them out. And she's got a pretty good record. The concerning part I have about her is I don't think she sticks with the truth. And it's bad enough when you're in a court situation where the defense attorney is throwing everything out there to try to get the person off, not get them convicted. That's sort of their job, yes. But when you're doing a television show and you specifically only put out certain information and leave out other certain information and allow this kind of manipulation to the general public, it's a big issue. Now, Kelly has pointed out something. She's saying, and this is true. So the backstory on this. I think that what made it a big story is because Avery had recently been released after falsely serving 18 years for rape. This is true. Now, the story about this, okay. And the answer is, if you ask me, did he serve 18 years for a crime he did not commit? And the answer to that is yes, he did. And no, he did not commit the crime. And so, of course, right there, right away, you think, boy, this guy's really been screwed, which essentially has sort of really been screwed. And let me show you the guy that actually did it. Where's my guy who actually, okay, this is the guy, Gregory Allen, who actually committed the crime. Now, so what happened essentially, and this is a lot what people don't understand, is why Steven Avery became the suspect and now this guy. Steven Avery had already been in the police's eyes for some very bizarre behavior with a relative of his. Let me look for the statement on exactly what had happened there. I've got so much information on this case, it's unfortunate. And give me just a second here. It's funny, I looked at this case way before Making a Murder ever came out. And I don't even remember doing it. That's a strange thing. I actually do not remember doing it. So I don't know. I don't know why I did it, but way back when I had my particular lives, my ideas on the case, and this. But now, of course, this came out, and I was like, what? Because I was shocked that they were doing this particular case. I'm trying to find the. Oh, okay, here we go. There were reasons that the police looked at this guy. First of all, there was the famous story, just what kind of guy he was, that he poured flammable liquid on his pet cat and threw it into the fire to watch it suffer and die. Now, right there, we all know, if we talk about serial killers, that one thing a serial killer may do in their years is they kill animals, they torture animals, and they think it's fun, and then they move up to human beings. Now, when you watch the show, shows are very clever. They did hundreds and hundreds of hours of taping, and anything that would make their person look bad that they're doing the show on, which is Steven Avery, they're going to cut that out, and they're just going to put in whatever they think is the most useful thing to put in there. And oftentimes, since I've done this kind of stuff before, they will, people always talk about police detectives leading people when they're doing an interview by saying, did you say there was didn't you see the green car that was there about 2:00? And then the guy goes, oh yeah, I saw a green car there at 2:00. Well, guess what? Television does the same thing. They will say things like, and they'll tell you, repeat the question in your answer. So they'll say something to this effect. So Steven, people say that you tortured and killed your cat on purpose. Is this true? And he goes, people say I tortured and killed my cat on purpose, but that's not so. It was an accident. Or I don't remember what he actually said in the show. I'm just giving you an example of how the television people will lead somebody into it. And sometimes they'll ask the question 5 times because they don't like the way the first one came out. So they'll say, okay, we're going to ask that again. And then they ask it again and you answer it again. Then they ask it again, you answer it again. Then they take what they want and put it in the show. Doesn't turn out the way they like it, it doesn't go in the show. So, at any rate, this guy, Steven Avery, not Gregory Allen, was known to be kind of a really creepy dude. Creepy dude. Now, this is what actually happened. Okay, first of all, I say he had cold-blooded tortured his pet in front of other people. By the way, this was in front of other people, and he admits he did it. He just doesn't admit it was as bad as it sounded, and that he poured the oil on it and threw it in a fire to watch it die. And he's like, oh, it just accidentally caught on fire. Yeah, okay. But he was amused by it at the time. Now, what happened here was that one time, Avery's cousin told people that Avery was acting like a pervert in front of her, masturbating, and his response was to run her off the road and point a gun at her and threaten to kill her. Now, the cops knew about this, and this was not an unknown thing. So already the cops like, this dude's a pervert. This dude may be a psychopath. He might be some kind of sex offender. Well, what happened was this woman gets raped, and she gives the description, and the guy, who's Gregory Allen, looks like almost a twin of Steven Avery. And so at that moment, because of location and everything, they went to Steven Avery. She identified him, misidentified him, mind you. And there, at the time, people will talk about DNA, but at the time, DNA wasn't as good as it is today. So it wasn't very useful. So he went to prison. Yes, it's true, for many, many years. And then eventually his DNA was put into something, a DNA bank or whatever. And it hit Gregory Allen. And it's like, oops. And you look at Gregory Allen, and then you look at Steven Avery and go, whoa, that's not too cool. They look pretty much alike. And oh my God, the woman identified him. The police thought it was him. The police weren't out to get him. The police really thought it was him. Now, I'm not saying it was the right thing that he got convicted. It was not. And then he had a civil case after he was let out. He had this civil case where he was, really going to, make a lot of money off of this whole issue. Now, so he comes out, and then Teresa Halbach disappears. Now, it's not like there was another sexual homicide in town, and nothing was linked to Steven Avery. Nothing at all. It's just like, oh, hey, we don't like Steven Avery, and this woman got killed down by the river. We'll go pit it on Steven Avery. That would have been possible. You could say, I think there's something fishy about that. No, the woman had received a call from Steven Avery asking her to come to his house to photograph vehicles. And then she disappeared. She was gone. So at that point, the police weren't focusing in on him for no reason. They actually literally had to go to his house to talk to him because that's the last place she was seen. And somebody said, if he knew the police would look at him, he wouldn't be that stupid. Yeah, well, okay, really? Because there's a lot of stupid serial killers running around, psychopaths and stuff. They exist. Hi, Veronica. Veronica's here. Nice to see you here. And Roberta's saying, wait a minute. I'll get back to that. You're talking about found innocent. I'll get back to that. That's not exactly true, but we'll get back to that enough. Martin, very good. Oh, I like this, Martin. See, I didn't watch this show because criminal justice belongs in the courtroom. Absolutely belongs in the courtroom. So, but here comes this whole show. So, but what they're doing is, I'm going to read what I wrote about this once about the way that Avery is presented. And this is, now Avery, in my opinion, there's no question that he is a psychopath. And a very vicious, nasty one. And whether he committed the Teresa Halbach crime or not has nothing to do with what kind of person he is. Because one of the things that happens, like with the case of the woman who was raped by Gregory Allen, is unfortunately there can be two serial rapists, like one here and one here. They're living next to each other. It could be either one of them. Might be a third one over here. So the problem is, when you're investigating a crime and you don't think that, you're not really thinking there's three guys right lumped in a row. They're all serial rapists. And all of a sudden this woman gets raped and she gives a description and then she identifies the guy. You think, oh, we got the guy. You don't say, well, just could be another lookalike serial killer who lived right down the street. So that's the kind of thing that can happen. And it's unfortunate. And it was a wrong thing that happened to him. But the wrong thing doesn't make anything else after that necessarily the right thing. I want to point this out. All during a massive lawsuit against the county. So it just appeared suspicious. Well, yeah. Avery probably thought after serving 18 years, I may as well commit a crime. Although I'm still not sure. Okay. And this could be the truth to it. So there's two sides you could look at the way a brain would think. One is, I better not do anything wrong because the police already hate me. The prosecutions already hate me. The people I've sued don't like me, and they might be out to get me. So I'm going to be really careful about anything I do. That's one type of thinking. Another type of thinking is they would never take the chance on ever accusing me of anything ever again, because look what happened last time. You think anybody's going to believe these people? And then you have to understand the way serial killers think, psychopaths think. They're very impulsive people, like throwing a cat into the fire to watch it die in front of your friends. Impulsive people. All of a sudden attacking his cousin. Impulsive people. Even though you shouldn't do that, and it was obvious, and he this cousin ratted him out. This thing happened. So if you have a compulsive kind of guy, he's going to do stuff because at that moment it seemed like a good idea, or seemed like it was going to be fun, or also grandiose thinking. Killers often think, psychopaths are so grandiose. They think, well, I'm untouchable now, just untouchable now. And, maybe if you commit a crime in a certain way where there really isn't much good linkage, yeah, maybe they wouldn't want to touch you. But, don't have people go disappearing at your doorstep after you made the phone call to ask them to come there. So that is the reason the police looked at him. Okay. So when people say he was targeted by the police because of his past and they were out to get him, that's not true. They had to look at him. So at any rate, he did. He brought her to his house. I want to point out some of the other things that he said. Okay, let's look at Avery. And the producers of the film really manipulated him. So you supposedly don't think he's like what he is. So here's what I said then. He exhibits all the traits of a psychopath. Narcissism, it's always about him. Manipulativeness, poor behavior controls, pathological lying, lack of remorse, emotionally shallow, lack of empathy, failure to accept responsibility for his own actions, impulsivity, need for excitement, and a grandiose sense of self-worth. Now, not only does he exhibit psychopathic traits, but he also exhibits a penchant for violence, sadism, and sexual perversion, and fire-setting. So he's actually right on the mark for being a sexually sadistic psychopath and serial killer. Yet the producers of the film want us to believe he's just a poor, uneducated schmuck who has been dealt a raw deal because they are not upper-class citizens. In reality, he had a reputation for being creepy and criminal, and that's why some people and the police thought of him as a blight on the community and someone likely to commit such a crime. And so this is the sad thing. So what they do is they put these things in, and they did some interesting stuff with him, where they would present something and then they soften it. So they go, he did write these. He wrote letters to his children because he wanted to have communications with them. And and one of the letters he did actually say he wanted to kill the mother of their children. He did say that, but and then he comes on and goes, yeah. At that moment, I was just so frustrated that I just got angry and wrote something silly. See, play it down, play it down, play it down. And see, he's not a perfect guy. We understand sort of why people looked at him badly, but he's not a perfect guy. Titch. Yes, he has his little things, but that doesn't mean he's a killer. And so you put this stuff into people's brains, so they start going, well, I don't want to say that he's a killer when, that he's a psychopath. I don't want to say that just because he has a few things that are a little weird. And, so they spend a lot of the film doing this kind of thing. Okay, now let's talk about Brendan Dassey. Now, he's the guy that supposedly committed the crime with him, his nephew. Now, as to Brendan Dassey, I wrote this. He is what we professionals call a dumb shit. Okay. A dumb shit. Now, a dumb shit does not refer to IQ. It simply means that he is a guy, usually not an evil guy, but one who does stupid crimes because he makes foolish choices or participates in serious crimes because he is egged on by a stronger lawbreaker or a gang. Now, back in the West Memphis 3 thing I did last week, I pointed out that there was one guy there, the one who confessed, who I think probably was that kind of dumb shit. Again, I don't think he's necessarily, they always try to say everybody's low IQ, they're under 70, they're retarded. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about somebody is incapable mentally of committing the crime. We're talking about a dumb shit. He's just not highly educated. He can still drive a car. He can get a job. He can do all those things, get a girlfriend, blah, blah, have a life. And he just doesn't have to be in care. He doesn't have to be in somebody's care because he has, his mental abilities are a little bit lower, and again, that being, even if you, let's say you have Down syndrome, that doesn't make you unable to understand morality and decency. I mean, you may have more difficulty figuring certain things out, but there are lovely Downs people who even get married to each other and are just wonderful citizens. Maybe they're not going to, become a rocket scientist, but that doesn't mean that they're not functional human beings. So this guy, Brendan Dassey, I would call him a dumb shit. So, well, just let me say hello to Claire. Hi, Claire. No worries. I'm lucky I'm not late today. So, hey. So he's a dumb shit. So let me tell you more about dumb shits. He is the weak partner in a serial killer duo, the one who does what the mastermind says. He is a follower and needs the attention of the leader. And, because they look up to somebody, they want to be, because they're easily led and they maybe don't have much confidence and don't have that strength of character to be able to do certain things, then they just follow somebody and that person says, hey, let's go get drunk. Okay. Let's go rob a liquor store. Okay. He's kind of just a dumb shit. I mean, it's the best way to explain it. I don't know a better way to say that. And I'm sure everybody in their life, you like that, huh? Erodo says, I love when you use technical terms, Pat Brown. Yeah, I mean, I could use really official technical terms, but dumb shit is better because, again, we all know dumb shits. Don't you know a dumb shit? I mean, I have relatives who are dumb shits. I won't say which ones they are, but they are. And they have that. I'm not saying how far away the relatives are. They're not close relatives, but they're the kind of person you go, wow, they did that? Well, that was a dumb shit thing to do. So Dassey is a dumb shit. And one of the things dumb shits often do is they give confessions with very little prodding. And why do they do this? Well, when they're separated from the leader and on their own, they're not exactly clever and tough. So Avery could hold out till death, proclaiming his innocence. But a dumb shit like Dassey will simply open his mouth with the smallest encouragement. in other words, they also don't seem to get the point of how bad it's going to be, what they're going to end up in, prison the rest of their life. They're like, well, okay, I was there, but and he did this, and it kind of sort of helped, but then he killed her, and I didn't want I didn't plan that. Oh, well, dude, you were there, and you didn't do anything about it. You didn't stop it, and you participated. So guess what? You get to go to prison. Is he as horrible, culpable as the leader would be? The answer is no. If one believes that Avery did it, Brendan Dassey would be his dumb shit follow along. So now, some people talk about the police investigation. They want to please interrogators. Well, yes and no. They want to. It's not what they want to please them by. Yes, I got to have you, loving me or anything. It's just that they become easily confused. They become easily. Let's say they're told what they're told, and they're like, okay, well, I guess I'll have to confess. They don't have that wherewithal to get very devious and say, well, I'm just going to say, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to talk about my lawyer. So they often confess, and they not only confess to the interrogators, they like Dassey confessed to his mother, and a bunch of times, as did the guy, and you were talking West Memphis 3. I'm blanking on his name. The one who confessed over and over again. Somebody tell me his name. I'm blanking on it. Wow. But it's not just once. It's like, okay, well, I did do it. Oh yeah, I was there. And it's like, doesn't mean they're lying, mind you. They're usually not that good at lying. So they usually are confessing to something that really did happen. But now, just to say this about the police interrogation, I will say this. While the interrogators of Dassey didn't do the best job I've ever seen, and occasionally gave information and led Dassey, they did not coerce his confession or terrify him into giving statements. Dassey told of his experience over and over, even to his mother, and his description, while likely containing some errors, was pretty much the truth. Avery drew him into a criminal act. I don't think he would have committed such an act on his own. But I say following somebody. Now, if we're gonna, before we get into whether things are totally whether the making a murder is right or wrong, I think you can probably sue Arlene. But regardless, if Dassey was involved and he confessed to what he confessed to, I can understand why he might merit a lesser sentence than the leader. I can go with that. At this point, as far as I know, he's still in prison. I think there was an attempt to get him an appeal, and then another trial, and then it failed. Because one of the problems is they're trying to get, usually what happens, they try to get appeals, is they try to get them on technicalities, not that there's evidence that proves otherwise. It's usually technicalities. And then a lot of times, if you look at like the Innocence Project, I don't know, the Innocence Project gets my goat really badly, because I do want people who are not guilty and were convicted to have someone fight for them and get them out. Obviously, I would feel that way. I also want, even if the guy's a creepy dude and sort of deserves to be there, if he didn't commit the crime, I want him out so the real guy can go in. But what I will say is this. The Innocence Project gets a lot of people out of prison who are guilty as hell, and that offends me. They get them out on some technicality, and when I go and study all the information about the actual trial, the evidence is overwhelming, and yet some technicality got them out, and then the Innocence Project and the media bury the truth about the crime and all the evidence, and all you see is this guy coming out of prison going, "Oh, I'm not angry at anybody. I just thank God, I'm able to see my family." And you're like, really? Okay. You just, you're guilty and you're happy you finally get out. And that's unfortunate. So have problems with that. Okay. So now let me get to some of the things in the, in the case. So let's see, that was, okay. I want to get to what actually happened. Oh, I want to point out Ken Kratz. Now, Ken Kratz, let me go find Ken. Ken Kratz was the special prosecutor on the case. This is Ken Kratz. Hello, Ken. Move out of his way. Funny when I'm standing in front of people. I could go over here. Maybe I'm over here. Okay, this is Ken Kratz. he was a special prosecutor. He got absolutely trashed in the documentary because they said he did all kinds of things, illegal stuff that, he helped plant evidence, and he got the police to plant evidence and all this kind of stuff. So Kevin Kratz wrote a book, Ken, his name is Kenneth Kratz. Ken Kratz wrote a book, and let me tell you the name of this particular book. It is called, I have it on my Kindle here. Where is it? Okay, hello. Where are we? Oh, it's called, what is it called? I don't read the name of the book. It's called Avery, The Case Against Steven Avery, and What Making a Murderer Gets Wrong. And I read this book a long time ago, and I remember being fairly impressed with it. This particular case was not one which I thought in particular the police did much wrong. I mean, you could say that maybe the Brendan Dassey interrogation was a little bit leading, but their claims that were made that evidence was planted, they'll say this, mind you. And let me point out what Kevin Kratz has. Why do I keep calling guy Kevin? Ken Kratz says. So here's what happened. So so let's see. What does he say about these? Okay, so where is it here? Okay, so let me just review basic what happened. Halbach's remains were found in a burn pit on Avery's property in Manitowoc County in Wisconsin. Now, mind you, she went missing. He called to have her come and photograph cars. That's what she did. She photographed cars. Let me get Teresa here so everybody remembers her. One of the reasons Kevin said, Ken, sorry, Ken. Ken said that he wrote this book was that she was being forgotten. And I'll move over here now. This is Teresa Halbach. And see, she what she would do is go around taking pictures for, just get, you want to sell your auto. She'd come and take a picture and, put it in the magazine and people buy your car. And of course, it's, kind of an unsafe thing for young women to do because you're going onto people's properties. You do not know who they are. And if the guy is home and you're there alone, it's not really a real super safe thing to do, unfortunately. And I feel really bad that she participated in this. And she actually had an experience with Steven Avery prior where she came to his house, he answered the door in a towel and he creeped her out. And so she really didn't really want to go back to his house, but for whatever reason, people convince themselves, okay, I'm overdoing this. I'll just go ahead and do my job. And so she went onto his property to take the pictures. And he claimed she didn't show up. And then he claimed that, she showed up, but then she left. So he changed his story. So that was all suspicious there. Now, for you who don't know, what happened to Teresa? Well, here's what happened. They found, so here, the freelance photographer, oh, wait a minute, let me go back here. Okay. Halbach's remains were found in a burn pit on the Avery property in Manitowoc County. The freelance photographer for Auto Trader magazine had visited the Avery salvage yard to photograph a vehicle for a magazine on the day she was last seen. Avery and his nephew, Brendan Dassey, were later arrested and convicted of Halbach's murder. They're serving life sentences. Now, the docuseries shows how prosecutors laid out their case. And here's the basic case. I'll put it right here now. Halbach's Toyota, which had blood in it, including Avery's, was found on the Avery's family lot. Now, mind you, it's also like hidden. It was like stuff was thrown on top of it to try to hide it, like branches and stuff. Avery's DNA was found on the hood of the vehicle. Tissues and bone fragments that matched Halbach's DNA were found outside Avery's mobile home. And then Avery, the 16-year-old nephew, Brendan Dassey, confessed that he had assisted his uncle in raping and killing her. And then Avery was accused of burning her body after she was killed. Now, there was a darn good amount of physical evidence that there was no question that her body was burned in that pit on the property, that her DNA was there. And there was also burned stuff that was in the pit. I'll explain that a little bit. That also matched her. And then there was even more. There was the key from the car was found in his house. And I'll go over why that's a contentious issue. But anyway, there was a lot of physical evidence. So essentially they found her car. They found the remains of her body. They found DNA, his and hers, and they found the key. And so she goes to, he calls her and says, come to my house to photograph things. His story changes. Then she vanishes immediately from his house, doesn't go anyplace else. And her car's found on his property. And there's a fire burning all night long in the burn pit. And DNA evidence and clothing evidence, whatever, is in that burn pit too. So, okay, he didn't do it. Okay, so I'm going to now explain to you the basics of why, to me, it's very hard to say this good guy didn't do it. All right, this is just basic profiling, crime analysis. I'm not going to get, this one of these cases where I could go into massive details, but it will be a long show and I'm not going to do that. I'm just pointing out the things that make sense, that are very obvious. Let's look at them. All right. So where the victim's body is found. The body was found on Avery's property. This is why the police went to Avery and talked to him. He wasn't targeted. You have the corpse of a murdered individual on your property, you're going to become a person of interest. I mean, why was the body on the property? Now, mind you, just like what happened with the West Memphis 3 movie, Paradise Lost, after they went after one suspect. So first they say the boys are innocent, and then they say one of the fathers killed the boys, and now they go one of the other fathers killed the boys. They keep changing their suspects because they're trying to come up with reasons why somebody else would have done this. So one of the problems you have is if her body's on his property, who else would have? Why was her body on his property? Now you can say a couple of things about that. You could say, well, which I did try, by the way. I'll explain about the key on the forced search thing. Yes. All right. So there's only 2 reasons. Well, there'll be 3 reasons. Let me go with all the possibilities. One is Steven Avery called her to the house, killed her, and that's why her body's on his property. That is probably the most reasonable and rational explanation. The second one, which people try to push around, is somebody else snuck onto his property. After he finished with her, somebody else snuck on his property, killed her, and burned her body on his property while he was home. He's there all night long, and they're having a fire burning up her body and whatever. And somehow then they plant evidence. Oh, or the police are involved. So then maybe the police are involved, so they get the police to come in and plant evidence. No, that gets pretty tricky. All right. But at any rate, only a few. This is true. She burnt the body all night long, Roberta. Only a few burnt bones are found, not a body. True. But the remains of a corpse is what I was pointing out. And that was DNA'd to be her. So it's not a question of who it was. All right. The next thing you look at, not only where the body is found, but the last place the victim was seen. That was on Avery's property. Anyone who lives on the Avery's property is going to become a person of interest, and this includes Steven Avery. Now, what they're trying to do is say his cousin's brothers now are, they've come up now as possibilities. And I think the guy who married, there's some other guy, somebody family had to have done it, behind Steven Avery's back, even though he's home the whole time, but I mean, the last person to have contact with the victim was, this is the next one. The last person to have contact with the victim, that would be Steven Avery. The police are obviously going to investigate the last person who was in contact with the victim or was with the victim. So there is nobody else that was ever seen with Teresa. Nobody. So she didn't go to somebody else's house. She wasn't seen with somebody else. It was Steven Avery's home, his home, his property, and he was the last person to see her. Also, where does the physical evidence of the crime exist? Well, that would be in Avery's fire pit, in the Avery burn barrel, in Steven Avery's house, and in the victim's car on Avery's property. All the physical evidence implicates Steven Avery. His DNA in the car, the victim's body parts, DNA, and personal items in the fire pit and barrel, and the key in his DNA in his house. Everything connected to this crime is also connected to Steven Avery. The DNA, the blood, the location. Everything is connected to that. Oh, yeah, I'm not even going to get into the external stuff that you're hearing from the show, which I'm not going to address all the little things that the defense attorney is going to throw around there, which is a bunch of bull. Zellner can say whatever she wants to. Zellner is a liar, and I'll say that. Zellner now says she has the phone ping leaving the property. This is they've done like 20 shows, and just like Paradise Lost, it's always like, oh look, we found this out. So and so saw that. Now they come up with a witness from way far away to say something when all the evidence is on Avery's property and connects Steven Avery to the crime. All right, let's look at witnesses. The only people that claim to have seen Teresa Halbach right before or after her disappearance are Bobby and Brendan Dassey. Now, Bobby Dassey states that he saw Halbach photographing a car and then heading towards Steven Avery's house. Brendan Dassey states he saw Halbach tied up in Steven Avery's house, saw Steven Avery kill her, and saw Steven Avery burn her. There are no witnesses saying they saw Teresa Halbach anywhere else or with anyone else. Okay, so some people say, oh, you see, well, that proves that Bobby Dassey, Brendan's brother, is now one of the suspects they've unearthed because he did see her, okay, on the property. So, okay, let's say he went in and did this. Why is Steven Avery's blood every place? Why is a key in Steven's? Why did Steven Avery, when somebody's burning something in his barrel all night long, not notice any of this? It's just nonsense. And no, this is not true. Avery's blood from the false imprisonment tampered with? No, it was not tampered with. It was proven it was not tampered with. The violent evidence, that was a whole big charade put on by by Zellner and the media, and in this case, the producers. There's nothing in that vial. There was no tampering. It's just absolute garbage. And so now we come down to the overwhelming evidence that Steven Avery is guilty of murder. And here's what I look at. Okay, so basically he's framed, right? This is what people are going to say. He was framed. Now, this is what you have to come up with for framing him. Someone knowing or getting lucky that Halbach was coming out to Avery's property on that day. Someone getting lucky that there were two witnesses to say she was with or near Steven Avery that day. Someone getting lucky that a witness can describe the crime in detail so that most of it matches the evidence. Someone has to kill Halbach for some reason and burn her body on the property right under the nose of Steven Avery, or bring her burned body parts, this did not happen, by the way, to the property and mix them in with the stuff Steven Avery had already burned. Someone had to hide the victim's car on the Avery property. Someone had to hide the victim's car key in Steven Avery's house, or someone had to plant Steven Avery's DNA in the victim's car and on the key. And this is, now people talk about the key. The key was for her car. Now, if Steven Avery killed her and hit her car, one of the reasons you're going to keep the key is because you're thinking to yourself, I might need to move that car. Maybe I haven't had time tonight, but I might need to move that car at some point. He brings that in. Now, if he's got blood that's on the key, he sees his blood on there, he might very easily wipe the key off. So and they say, well, why isn't her DNA on there? Well, if he wiped the key off, that may be the reason. He wiped off the blood, and then he still handled the key after that. So only his DNA would be on the key, not the blood, but also it's just handling it. Now, it took a number of searches. Supposedly, the key was hidden in a piece of furniture, like in between some wood on the furniture. I'm not saying all searches are done well. So one of the searchers, they pulled the thing and it fell out. Okay, so let's assume somebody planted the key. Who came into his bedroom and planted the key there with his DNA on it? Who went and planted blood in the car? I mean, none of this makes any sense. This is just nonsense. Now, so either, and here's the other possibility. So either law enforcement found out Halbach was going out to Steven Avery's house, and just as she was leaving, they kidnapped her, killed her, burned her up, and spread all the evidence and DNA around Avery's property or house. Does anybody really think, because law enforcement was mad about this money he was getting, that they would go and happen to find out about this girl going to the house and follow her and do all of this stuff? Oh, this is something Hollywood movies are made out of, but not real life. And then, of course, they got a guy to confess and blah, blah, blah. Or someone else saw the opportunity to kill Halbach, killed her, burned her up somewhere, spread her cremains, as I put it, and personal items around the Avery property. And then law enforcement saw a great opportunity and jumped on board by planting Avery's DNA in the key. Or maybe Steven Avery is just guilty as hell and all the evidence proves it. I stand there. I stand with the simple fact that Steven Avery is a sexual psychopath. He is what he is. He may not have committed the first crime, but doesn't mean he didn't commit the second crime. And the simple fact is there was overwhelming physical evidence and there was witness evidence. And he also changed his story. So, and it was on his property and he made the phone call to bring her out. So it would have to be just extraordinarily fortuitous and all these people doing all this stuff it's just so nonsensical. And there are questions about why is there not more blood here? Why is there not more blood there? Blah, blah, blah. Evidence is a weird thing. First of all, you have to get exactly where things actually happen. Sometimes you don't get the entire true story of where things happened or who cleaned what or whether the person was attacked here or attacked there. Sometimes there's, a lot of times when you go to trial, there are those little inconsistencies you have trouble explaining because you just don't know. Simple fact is you weren't there and you don't know. And people don't always tell the entire truth. They tell parts of truth. And so then people are like, wow, but they said that one wrong. Well, yeah, but if everything else points there, every single other thing points there, then that's a problem. Okay, yes, this is true. People confess to crimes they haven't done. Dassey thought he was going home to watch TV if he told them he killed her. But he told them enough stuff that matched the crime. And if Steven Avery is guilty and he did it with somebody, and the guy who he did it with confesses to enough of the crime that it makes sense and it matches the evidence, then probably Brendan Dassey was there. I don't think somebody else was there. Now, what'll happen is, and this is the kind of nonsense that happens, you get, for example, the brother who became, let's find this one. Is it this dude? Yeah, I think this is the brother, Bobby Dassey. Okay, so let me tell you about some of the supposed other suspects. As I pulled up this little thing on who the other suspects are supposed to be. Who is? So what happens is, which is interesting, Bobby Dassey becomes a person of interest at the end of season 2. So they go through this 2 entire seasons and suddenly they come up with, oh yes, it's Bobby Dassey. Because, guess why? Because the dude looked at pornography. Pornography. Hundreds of videos of pornography. You want to know? Okay, I'm going to just go down the block and look how many people watch Pornhub. And if there's anybody over here who says, oh, I've never heard of Pornhub or nobody, I don't know anybody who's done Pornhub, well, you have a very clean life and clean people, clean lives. Pornhub is a free site. Tons of people go to Pornhub. And then if they get sucked in, they might want to go to a fancier site, which I pay a little bit of money for. But they can go to Pornhub. Now, the other thing she says is hundreds of videos of pornography, which I say you might as well arrest half the dang United States. Not that I approve of pornography on the internet and Pornhub. I don't necessarily approve of it, but it is there. Okay. And many, many normal people watch that. We know someone, don't we? Okay. So, and then they said, and hundreds of videos of pornography and violence toward women. Now, this is a really tricky thing. When they group those things together, hundreds of videos of pornography and violence toward women. What is it? Is it like 300 videos of pornography and 3 of them had, I don't know, some kind of S&M thing? Somebody was tied up, some dominance thing? Because there's a crap load of that on Pornhub and other sites as well. So maybe some guy has that fantasy. Doesn't mean he's actually going to go out and rape and murder somebody. So that's their evidence. Okay, so let's see. Is there any other things let's see. Oh yeah, that's it. Let's see. What was the bombshell? Let's see. Oh, here's a bombshell. I love it when they call them bombshells. In April 2021, this is like 6 years after the case. 6 years after the first part of the movie. She dropped some bombshell revelations on Twitter. Ooh, a new witness came forward and alleged he saw Bobby with an unidentified 50-year-old man pushing a Toyota RAV4, the same model Halbach was driving, onto Steven Avery's property. Who was that person who 6 years later wants to claim that he saw Bobby doing that? Really? You can claim anything you damn well please. It doesn't mean a damn thing. So that's the kind of nonsense stuff. So there was, the only thing is he saw her on the property taking pictures. But that's it. That's his entire, that's it. There's nothing else that makes that there's any kind of proof of anything. So this is the kind of stuff we saw with Paradise Lost and West Memphis 3. Okay, we're going to have to come up with somebody. So we're going to come up with one of the fathers. Now, what was the evidence with one of the fathers? He had a knife. And now later on, it's the other father, because there was a piece of hair on the boy's shoe that he could have gotten at home. It could have just been something they picked up in the house. But that piece of evidence now proves this. Now the other father did it. So first they just tried to destroy the life of the one father by saying he killed his own child and the two other children. Now then they went after the other father and said he killed the kid. Neither one of those had any evidence. Bobby Dassey, there's zero evidence saying Bobby Dassey did anything. There's just none. There's none. So they keep. I think there's also some guy who was in prison who supposedly confessed he did it, and that all disappeared too. So in all these years since this case has been out, they haven't got anybody. They just point fingers at people and ruin their lives. So Bobby Dassey, who probably had nothing to do with anything, maybe I don't know if he's a very great guy. Maybe he's a creepy dude. I don't know. But if there's no evidence, now this is what's funny about these shows. This is what just drives me crazy. So you have a show that you go out there and you say, Steven Avery, he's innocent. He's innocent. How dare the police even look at him? I mean, just because her body was burned up on his property, just because her car was on his property, just because his blood was in the car, just because he had the key, just because, how dare you accuse this poor innocent man? But now Bobby Dassey looked at some porn. Let's accuse him. So they're claiming that the police and prosecution did this horrifying thing to this man. But Hollywood, Netflix, has no problem destroying somebody else's life with absolutely zero evidence. So little evidence that if you compare the evidence of Steven Avery and the evidence of Bobby Dassey, we're looking like this. And this guy's got massive. So I think it goes this way. Which way to go? This one, weighted. Okay, I'm going the wrong way. Weighted evidence. Okay, Bobby Dassey, nothing. Him, tons of crap. Okay? So, I'm sorry, but there was a very good prosecution. There was physical, circumstantial, and witness evidence. One of the strongest cases I've ever seen go to court. Now, yes, there are moments where you say, okay, why didn't they find this here and that there? But, you don't always know exactly how much of blood there is and in what location it actually occurred in. I say people don't tell the exact truth, but the simple fact is that there's no way somebody else came on his property and set him up like that. Actually, because the burn barrel, it was burning him for all night. I mean, this is his property. I mean, this is this guy's property. It's his Steven Avery's property. He would know if there's burning. Why were they burning out in the burn barrel? He would know something. He would, the fact that he knows nothing yet, the key shows up in his house, blood shows up here, and all. It's ridiculous. I mean, I'm sorry. It is overwhelming, physical, circumstantial, behavioral, and witness evidence. That's a heck of a lot of stuff. Just a heck of a lot. And it is this Hollywood crap where you come up and you present everything in such a way with the dramatic music and these whatever editing you want to do, and you put things out there like, oh, this vial, it looks like the vial might have been tampered with, and then they go through these phony, fake, whatever they're doing to show how it could have been tampered with. Then they leave the audience thinking it was tampered with when the actual evidence is it wasn't tampered with. And then the other thing they do is if there is, for example, 9 pieces of evidence pointing toward him, they will make sure to not show those 9 pieces of evidence. They'll only show other stuff. They will leave out so much information so that you think that evidence doesn't exist. And they just keep manipulating you this direction and that direction and this direction and that direction and putting up people, oh, this could be true, this could be true, until the fact is people get to the end and go, oh, this poor guy got railroaded. No, Steven Avery is a sexual psychopath. A sexual psychopath. He proves it from everything he's ever written, the way he does. He's a no question a psychopath to me. And I say the evidence was overwhelming. I refuse to go, and I can't. I'm not going to sit here. There's little questions that you have. They say little questions where I actually would have to go back in all of my notes to then refute and explain every single question somebody's going to come up with to say, oh, he didn't do it, or this piece of evidence didn't exist. Bully for you if you want to go down those things. But if you don't, if you just look at it for what it is, the man called for the woman to come to his property to take the pictures. He was there. She was there. She never left the property. She ended up raped and murdered, dead. Her car hidden on the property. He had the key, the DNA, blah, blah, blah. It's all there. It is a very solid case. And this is, say, I'm very annoyed with Hollywood for doing that because they don't seem to care. And then on the other hand, not the one I did 2 weeks ago was West Memphis 3, but the one I did last week was on the false confession of Todd Kohlhepp in the mass murder. The 4 people were murdered in Chesney, South Carolina. Now, in that case, they went to court with no evidence. They actually had no evidence on him at all. They had not one shred of evidence. They didn't have a gun. They didn't have a witness. They didn't have blood. They didn't have anything linking Todd Kohlhepp to that crime. Only thing is he claimed he knew what happened and he claimed he shot everybody in the forehead. And as I proved last week, everything he said was a lie. None of it was accurate. Nobody was shot in the forehead. He had the order of the killing wrong. Everything was wrong about what he said. But they went ahead and convicted him anyway. Well, they gave him a plea deal, so he got out of a serial murder. He got out of death penalty on 3 people he murdered, which he did, serial homicides. And just if he admit to the mass murder, he gets out of the serial homicides. Now, oddly enough, no, where's the Innocence Project? Well, I know Todd Kohlhepp's a serial killer, so he's a piece of crap. But where's the Innocence Project coming in and saying, wait a minute, you were crooked. The prosecution and the police there were crooked when they made these claims that weren't true and prosecuted the guy based on a false confession that they knew was a false confession. Where is everybody? Where's the media? Where's the story? Hey, Netflix, give me a ring. I'll do the story on Todd Kohlhepp and the false confession. But guess what? The media won't talk to me because they don't want to do that story. So they're picking whatever story they think is going to make them the kind of money they want to make. And this was one of them. And it was kind of surprising in the sense that I think it was only because it has to be because he got imprisoned wrongfully the first time. Because normally, let's face it, a white guy is often not as chosen for a story because you can't say there's a racial issue here. You can't say, he was put in prison. He was just put in prison because he was Black and it was racism. That's often very much used in these cases. And here's a white guy. It's like, well, that wouldn't work. And he's also a psychopath and he's not a likable human being, which is also interesting because sometimes, you can try to get somebody off who has at least some kind of pleasant demeanor and didn't burn his cat up in a fire, on purpose. But here we have a psychopath who threw his own cat in the fire and watched it sizzle. And somehow people are like, please, let's get him out of jail. Okay, let's not. Let's leave him where he is. Let's leave him where he is. I mean, he got unlucky the first time, but he didn't get lucky the second time. And so, yeah, it was still wrong that he got in prison the first time. But hey, stop running around threatening women and trying to sexually assault them and acting like a sleazebag and a creepy dude. And so you end up getting people pointing fingers at you. But I'm still saying that was wrong. It was wrong. He had every right to sue. He had every right to be paid. But when you come out, you don't get to kill. You don't get to go out and say, okay, now I get to do what I kind of would have liked to have done that other crime, but I didn't get to do that one. And then I've been in prison all these years. That sucked. But now I get to come out and I can actually rape and murder. Ooh, cool. And maybe they'll never come after me because they wouldn't dare. Well, they did dare. And I give Ken Kratz credit. I think he did a good job. And when I talked about, the case in South Carolina, the Superbike mass murder, I go after that sheriff's department as being criminal in their handling of the case, malfeasance. And I say the same thing for the prosecution. That was malfeasance. And so I will go against the police department if I see that is true, because I believe that most detectives are working very hard to do the right thing, to bring justice. They you know, when you're especially a homicide detective and you have to go out there and see dead people and their heads blown off and children have been murdered and women who've been raped and brutalized, you want to catch the guy. I mean, you know, you've worked hard as a police officer, you become a detective, and you want to catch the guy. Most of the time, they're doing their best to do the right thing. So I am very much supportive of detectives, very much supportive of police departments. I do back the blue. However, once in a while, you get less than perfect people in certain departments, and politicians play a great role in things. So politics gets in the way. You got, and in my opinion, the sheriff's department down there in Spartanburg County Sheriff's Department, which I did work with and speak up against now, because I believe that the sheriff needs to be taken out of office, and I think he needs to be charged. But you know, and I think the prosecution needs to be brought to light too on this. But in this particular case, I mean, yes, I don't think the interview with Brendan Dassey was, maybe, let's say, maybe it could have been done better. Maybe it was a little bit led in that, which I'm not saying I'm approving of. Not everybody's the greatest interviewer in the world, and there are detectives who just don't seem, they let things slip and they don't realize what they're doing when they do that. Sometimes they do, and it's wrong. I have a case which I will do this case at some point. And they led the guy. I mean, oh my God, it was one of the worst interviews I've ever heard. They totally led the guy into the confession, which it was so pitiful. They led him 100% into the confession. And then later he was exonerated and proved he didn't do it. But he was slow. He wasn't a dumb shit. He was just a slow man. You know, he was just slow. And so in that particular case, I thought that was egregious, absolutely egregious. This I don't think was egregious. I think it just wasn't great. But the physical evidence and everything else was so strong. And the fact that Dassey did confess also to his mother. And, you know, he said enough stuff that matched that, you know, I'm going to say, I think he was there. I think he was a dumb shit who followed the leader. Do I think he deserves life in prison? Yeah. You want to knock it down to 10, 15 years? I'm okay with that. Let him out at this point. Maybe would never do anything like that again. He's already paid his dues. He was following the leader. I think Steven Avery needs to be there for life. He should have gotten the death penalty, in my opinion, but he at least needs to be there for life. And I don't think there's any evidence to prove otherwise. And so, but you know, I'm sure there'll be I don't know if they've gotten up to Making a Murderer #3 season, and they'll find some other people to accuse. It's just, I think it's pitiful. I think that we have a process. It's called the appeals process. And the appeal shouldn't belong in the hands of the public. You know, you should be only presenting evidence. You shouldn't be presenting false information by way of a cleverly constructed documentary, a cleverly constructed documentary intending to sway the audience to believe a certain thing without presenting actual proper information and actually presenting the evidence that does exist. So they were super successful. It's one of the biggest money makers ever. And in my opinion, thank God Steven Avery is still in jail and he didn't get out. So that's my final word on that. Let me see what I haven't looked at what's going on in the questions here for a long time. So let's see what we say. Oh no, would he? Yes, he would. Would he really be stupid enough to leave it on his property? Absolutely. See, people think that criminals are smart. They're not necessarily smart. They're arrogant. They're really super arrogant. And he's like, oh, well, they'll never check me out because they're not going to dare come to my house and accuse me of anything again. I don't think they're going to come. People do dumb shit. I mean, even you know, not him. This one's Bobby Dassey. It's not him. Okay, I should put back the proper people up here so I can get poor Bobby Dassey out of there because I don't have any evidence that he committed a crime. So is this the correct one? Is that him? And I'm getting confused. They all look so similar, so I'm not exactly sure. I'm just gonna put this one on the screen because I say I have a thing called face blindness. Kind of, I can't tell anybody apart. It's terrible. I don't know. They kind of look exactly the same to me. Brendan Dassey is what I call a dumb shit will follow the leader. However, it is also true that a lot of serial killers and psychopaths, the problem is they're very, very, I'm going to try to fix my screen. It's turned into mush. Oh, see, it gets into worse mode. Oh, now I've disappeared. See, isn't that fun? You got to see, you have to get it in this exact spot so you don't disappear and you don't get all fuzzy wuzzy. So anyway, see the shoulder here is going buzzy. I can't seem to fix it today. Maybe my light's not good enough, but psychopaths often make mistakes, and this is what will happen with serial killers in general. The first crime they do, they often do some real dumb stuff, and you can catch them on the first crime, and then they'll, you're lucky you stopped them from committing maybe 10, 12 more. Then you got, what happens is they figure out some stuff on the first crime, and they start getting smarter because they're just more confident and they deal with it better. And then they get so overconfident that they start getting really careless. And that's when they get caught. So the best time usual time you catch a serial killer is either very much in the beginning or very much in the end, when they're getting careless or just lucky DNA. So, but it's there's people do people bury a lot of crap on their property. They do that all the time. I mean, if he thinks he burned her body up, then he thinks they're not going to find her body. And if he hid the car, so basically it's got a lot of cars on the property. There's a lot of junk out there. Nobody comes out and finds the car, whatever, Do you actually think somebody else will come on the property? Let's assume I don't know who else. They're going to come on the property. They're going to kill her. Then they're going to walk on somebody else's property and put the car down there. And then they're going to stand there over a burn barrel in somebody else's property. Let's say then Steven Avery walks out and goes, "What the hell was that? Damn, is that a body in the burn barrel?" Would you really do that on somebody else's property? I doubt it. So I don't believe that for a minute. So let's see. Do we have any other commentary here? Let's see. Oh, well, this is true. And there's a bunch of, Kelly points this out quite correctly, there's a bunch of YouTubers who have zero education in law or investigative work and think they know more than law enforcement, doctors, etc., or everything is conspiracy. Yeah, I know and it's not that people who aren't profilers, people aren't detectives, can't use deductive ability. They can. I mean, that's why we theoretically have a jury system that puts 12 people who don't have any skills, who are just as bad as the YouTubers. They're the jury, and they don't know half the time what they're doing either, which is why I object to the jury system, because I think 12 people off a bus stop is not proper to analyze crime. But yeah, that's the same thing. Essentially, the jury system is very much like all the YouTubers and some of the just the producers of these shows. Only thing different is that the producers of the shows are after money. That's what they're after. They're after money. And most people who are doing YouTube also want money. And again, I'm not against people earning a living, but earning a living unethically is a different matter. So you're doing a show and you don't care what the truth is. You're just trying to, whatever it is that you're trying to make your money on, you're going to go there. And then that I find extremely frustrating. Oh God. Well, yeah, I did a thing on that, Kelly. There are a few YouTube creators who think there was zero evidence against Chris Watts. Only his confession. Yes. So if anybody hasn't seen Chris Watts, the guy who killed his wife and two beautiful little girls, I did one show on that and one show only, because there were so many people there claiming that either he didn't do it, Chris Watts didn't do it, or the woman he was seeing, his girlfriend on the side, that she helped him murder the wife and children, which is absolutely ludicrous. But again, there are people who are doing stuff on the Chris Watts show. And you look at if you go to their channels, you will see they will have 20 shows on Chris Watts. And they will have like 100,000 subscribers or 500,000 subscribers. You're like, wow. And you go there and all they're doing is telling the creepy story and go, oh my God, did you see what happened? There's a light that flashed. I think that's his girlfriend is sneaking around in the bushes or whatever they're saying, and they're just making up stuff and they're creating doubt. They're creating scenarios, but it's not based on evidence. It's based on just being able to manipulate the public so that they make a lot of money. So, which I think is just concerning. I don't think I can answer that one. I'm not, Kelly's asking some stuff about the legal matters. I don't really do court work, so I don't even want to go there because I'm not all that bright on that stuff. So we'll not do that. Oh, well, that's true. See, like Gina points out this up. Gina says, why do people think psychopaths are smart? Most get caught, so they aren't. Most psychopaths commit low-level crimes, first of all. Robbery, burglary, assaulting people, lots of low-level crap. And they're not necessarily terribly bright. That's why the prisons are full of them. Some of them aren't psychopaths, but an awful lot are. It's just that they're not committing crimes that are that hard to figure out. Especially you've got surveillance is one of the things that's really catching people these days. A lot of people object to the cameras on the streets because it feels like Big Brother's watching. But I mean, generally speaking, it's pretty meaningless for most of us because we're either just driving or walking down the street doing nothing. We're boring and nobody cares. But in the instance where you have a crime go down, somebody gets, for example, stabbed on the street, shot on the street, or whatever happens to them, you have a drive-by. You have a drive-by and the car drives away and the camera picks up the make of the car, the direction it's going in. Oh, look, they can see the license plate too. You catch people that way. And a lot of cases these days get solved because of cameras, and they can go from camera to camera to camera. So if you see the car over here, you may not be able to see it clearly there, but then you go to the next camera and you catch it there. Then you get cameras from stores, cameras from houses. You can get a tremendous amount of information. A lot of cases these days are solved through camera work. And so thank God for that. But they're not, most people, those criminals aren't overly bright. They just want to do something and they do it and they hope they don't get caught, So let's see what else I got. No, I don't, Roberta. Do you think the jury system works? No, I don't think it works at all. It's 12 people off a bus stop. Now, we want to say they're nice people, which they probably are nice people. We want to say that they're smart and they're really good at figuring out, stuff. But here's what's really weird. For example, there are people out there who say, I don't know how to analyze crime. I've been doing it for 20 years. But there'll be people out there that say I'm a fraud and I don't analyze crime properly because I don't agree with what they want to believe, right? And in a court situation, I may not be able to testify in court because they'll say you don't have the proper credentials because I'm not an FBI profiler. And I'm an independent, and they will probably tear me up in court. Where did you get your training? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I'm not allowed to testify in court because I am not capable of doing proper analysis. But 12 people that couldn't get out of jury duty are going to be the final people to analyze the case. They are the final people. So after all this, and on top of that, they're not being presented with just the evidence. They're being presented with manipulative arguments, manipulative stuff. I mean, the defense attorney, the prosecutor, depending on who's being manipulative more, they're trying to sway the jury. They're not just putting the evidence out there and saying, okay, look at it and see what happened. They're trying to sway. So this guy brings in an expert that says the blood spatter pattern means it came from this direction. Then the other blood spatter expert for the other side says it came from this direction. It came from both directions? Somebody's lying. Then you have different, you might have different medical examiners. One testifies for the defense, one testifies for the prosecution. They don't say the same thing. So what you're getting is two different sides. One saying this happened and one saying that happened. And putting out evidence which is either true or not true, or can be misinterpreted or interpreted properly. And you've got 12 people who have never done any studies. They have not studied psychopathy. They have not studied evidence. They have not studied crime scene analysis. They've studied nothing. This person might be a math teacher. This person might be, they work in a factory. This person over here happens to be, I don't know, he works at an amusement park. Nice people. And some of them may be very good. You never know. You got the real logical person there. I once taught in a class, and I had a girl who was 19 years old, who was a secretary, administrative assistant, as I say today, administrative assistant, no background. She was my best student. She was great at analyzing crime scenes. I was just like, whoa, hire that girl, So yes, it does happen. But when you got 12 people, you don't have 12 people who can analyze crime scenes. And yet they're the ones going to make the final decision on whether a person goes to prison or possibly ends up with a death penalty. Or they're going to let them off, which is even worse. When they're guilty and they go, I just didn't think he was guilty. So, and they let him off. And they're like, wow, the evidence was overwhelming. And you let the guy walk? What the heck? But I say these people, they have doctors. They have people coming with PhDs. They have people with 50 years of experience, and they'll put them on the stand and they'll say, how many years have you analyzed firearms evidence? And the person will say, I've done it for 50 years. I've worked for the FBI's and whatever, firearm laboratory, blah, blah, blah. I've done 762 cases. Now, you're on this jury. You're like, oh, well, I guess he knows more than me. You think he has to be telling the truth, right? Not necessarily. Depends who paid him. Depends who paid him. So, yeah, Martin, I like it. Just put a simple point. Burnt remains on your property would take some explaining. Yes, they certainly would. So that is problematic. That's I say there was ample evidence there that was concerning. I'm not sure. Dassey changed his story during the trial, among the other things. Could it be partly because the family thought Steven would go free again? Who knows? I mean, people change their stories all the time. And one reason they change their stories is because they have a thing called a defense attorney. And the defense attorney tells them what to say. And they say, well, don't say this, change it to that. You can't trust what the defense attorney will try to push out there. I have worked on cases where I've been hired by the defense attorney. Review this case and tell us what you think. And I review the case and say, look, your client is guilty as hell, premeditated murder. And then they're like, well, couldn't it have been this? And they try to get me to change my analysis to something else. Now, what will happen is a lot of times you make a lot more money for testifying in court than you do just doing some behind the scenes stuff. So, you already are compromised in the sense that if you say what they want, you will get more money. It's kind of the same thing with private investigators. Some private investigators do a fine job, but then there are private investigators who the family will come up with some ludicrous idea. Oh, could it be this? Could it be the Mexican mafia? When it made no sense that it was the Mexican mafia. And the guy goes, well, I'll go investigate that for you. And 50 hours later, after he's charged $50 to $100 an hour, he's soaked these people for a huge amount of money. He'll investigate anything. He doesn't care. He's getting paid by the hour. He'll investigate, the dog down the street. He's making money. So it's a real problem with people paying you for what you think, and having what you think be something that could be something you can buy. You can buy that. So, oh yeah, Martin, I'm excluded for jury service as I am a qualified solicitor. Yes, you will be. And do you think I could ever do jury service? No, I only went once. And they said, what is your profession? I said, criminal profile. And I said, thanked and excused. They don't want me on there. They want to make sure that they can manipulate people. So they're going to try to be, yeah, I like being excluded. Me too. I mean, I personally don't want to be on a jury, not in this country, actually, here's what works, which is really interesting. So the last time I was asked to go to do jury duty, I sent back on the letter reasons why you can't do jury duty. And I said, I don't believe in the jury system. I think that the other jurors are idiots. And they let me go. I was like, well, that worked. So that was kind of cool. So at any rate, okay, so we're coming to the end. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Appreciate you being here. It's always nice to have you around. Again, please do like the video. If you haven't already run away, please do subscribe. And at the end, I'll show you some of the books that I have out there, which you can buy usually at Amazon, unless it's Madeline McCann's story, in which case you got to go to Smashwords. So anyway, thank you for being here. It's been great as usual. Bye, and thank you. I'll see you next week.